everyone, it's Laura, and today I'm here to talk to you about Elantris. So I took a short break after Way of Kings, and I've continued on my Brandon Sanderson journey in the Cosmere, and I read his first book, Elantris. So this book, it is about a place where there was this city called Elantris, and in this continent, people would occasionally be transformed and their hair would turn white, their skin would sort of glow, and they were then considered an Elantrian, and they had to move into the city. And anyone who's not transformed basically considered the Elantrians as gods because of their appearance and because they had the ability to perform almost miracles. Any sickness or injury that healers couldn't touch, if you bring a person to Elantris, then good chance is that they will be able to heal the person. Obviously, there were limitations as well, but 10 years before the start of this story, something happened. No one knows what, but the Elantrians, they fell, and now they call it the Riode. And instead of transforming into an Elantrian, people basically appear to be sick with some sort of plague almost. Their skin turns gray, they have splotches on their skin, their hair falls out, and they're considered basically dead by the rest of the people because they can be injured, but they won't die. The only way to kill them is to cut off their heads. But the unfortunate part for those people is they don't heal from any of those injuries. So they're just kind of like walking corpses, their hearts don't beat. And because obviously this is disastrous, you can imagine the superstitions that people have around these afflicted people. So they still send them to Elantris, which is no longer the godlike futuristic city that it once was. It's ruins, it's been crumbling, and it's filled with these people. And next to this, what was once a glorious city, is the kingdom of Erelon, and they're the ones that are basically kind of the gateway to Elantris for the rest of the world. There used to be 4 cities around Elantris, and Kai, the capital city, was the only one that remains standing 10 years later. And their entire political structure was upended 10 years ago. And so the person who became the king, he was a former merchant, and he implemented a caste system and named all the other wealthy merchants as nobles and named some dukes, some barons, etc. And the system is not going well. And he has a son, Raoden, and the beginning of the story is that Raoden is supposed to marry Serene, that's how the audiobook pronounced it, Serene, from the Teode kingdom, and they were making a political alliance. And on the day of his wedding, when he's supposed to meet Serene, she's finally coming, he wakes up only to find out that he's afflicted. So he is basically prepared and thrown into Elantris. And so Serene shows up just to find out that her husband is dead, because it's considered kind of disgraceful for these people that are afflicted with the Riode. And so only a few people in the palace know that he is not really dead, but they consider him dead and that he's an Elantris. So they hold like a fake funeral with a casket and everything like that. And so she shows up, and due to the wedding contract, she, upon Raoden's death, is considered still married to him, so she's a widow. And so she tries to figure out what to do because she's still bound by the contract and has to fulfill her duties as a widow. And so she didn't really fit in her old kingdom because she was into playing political games. She's very intelligent. She didn't hold back on her opinions, and she found that that was not very conducive to life in court. So she was hoping to find love with a husband and more acceptance in this new kingdom, only to be kind of thrown into this upheaval when she arrives. So this book is told by 3 different perspectives. So you have Raoden in Elantris, you have Serene in court, and the 3rd viewpoint is Traithan. And he is a Gjorn from a religion. And basically, there were numerous religions in this continent world before, but upon the fall of the Elantrians, one religion, they pretty much came in and have been attempting to conquer all the different kingdoms and convert them. And their methods, while Traithan is eager to do it peacefully, they're not against doing it with might and force. And about a year or so before the start of the story, there was another country that apparently suffered heavy casualties before their conversion. So he comes in and you get his perspective about how he's trying to convert all of the people to worship Lord Jadeth. And it's very pyramid scheme structure for their religion. He's a Gjorn, which is pretty high up, and he only basically reports to the Wyrn, and the Wyrn is kind of like the prophet, or the only one that can directly commune with Lord Jadeth to work his will. And overall, I liked a lot of the concepts in this book, and seeing the different schemes that the different people have and how they interact. Because obviously, Raoden in Elantris, he's trying to improve the life of those around him that he sees suffering. He is a wonderful, kind person. So even though he wants to kind of go under the radar and not let people know that he's the prince, he still wants to make life better for them. And so you kind of see what his plans are. But unfortunately, in kind of the wasteland that Elantris is, there have been different gangs that have popped up to kind of survive. And so he has to contend with those. And it's just interesting seeing what goes on there. And then Serene, she is trying to do what she can to improve the kingdom. Because like I said, it's run by a merchant, and he was a very good merchant, but he's not a very good king. And so she's trying to see what she can do to improve life for the country. And then when she sees that the Gjorn Hrathen is there, she knows about him and what he's done. And she is basically kind of, from my understanding, her religion shared a common umbrella religion with the one Hrathen is preaching, but they took different paths and they recognized different gods at this point. So she knows that if Arelon falls to Lord Jadeth's forces, that her country, Teod, is going to be the only one that has not been conquered, and so all eyes will turn to her home country, which I believe is an island because you have to sail across water. I don't know if they ever specify if it's an island or if it's another landmass, but I think it's an island. So they have strong navy forces, but they pretty much know that they can't resist all these other countries' forces that Wyrn could mobilize against them. So she's doing her best to ruin any plans that Hrathen could come up with to convert this country. And I like a lot of the story. My only problem actually is reading Hrathen's viewpoint, because I think I've mentioned it in a previous video. I'm myself not very religious, and I respect people who are, and I'm all for, you can believe whatever you want to believe as long as it's not hurting anybody and you don't try to convert me. But that being said, reading a viewpoint in a book from someone that has a certain amount of religious zealotry is not my cup of tea. He has no remorse about what he did in the other country, and he is trying to kind of peacefully convert this country, but he was given a deadline, and he doesn't show any shame or apprehension really at the thought that they might have to do the same to this country and kill all these people. And just the responses he comes up with, where he's just basically blind parroting these responses about how this is the only truth and this is the only way, and everyone who doesn't convert, then they must be killed, basically. I just can't get behind that mindset, and I can't understand it, and it's a little disturbing to read that mindset. And even worse, there is someone that he interacts with that he has, over the years, Hrathen has kind of become, he has dealt with his religion more with the mind. But then one of the other characters he interacts with, Delof, he is all about feeling it from the heart. And so he has his religious zeal scares even Hrathen. And so just when we're in Hrathen's perspective, you see those two characters the most. And I got to admit that that's partially, I think, why this book isn't 5 stars for me. Just because I like seeing the different religions, the different books and fantasy worlds, but just I like seeing what they come up with and seeing belief systems and how it interacts with the political structure and different characters and what they value and what they think of the religions. I do like seeing religion in these books, but being in the mind of Hrathen was not my favorite. So that's all I'll say about that. And then the other thing that I didn't quite like is I did like Serene for the most part. She is very smart, and I like her ambition and how she's not sitting on her laurels when the country is basically falling in around her, and she knows that nothing good can come and that they're on borrowed time. And she does what she can to make connections and try and create plots of her own to improve the country. My problem with her is that she's 24, 25, I believe, and I don't remember specific. And she has been in her father's court since she was young, and then she's been an ambassador for her father, traveling all over to the different countries. So she has some life experience. She doesn't have experience with love, and so she was looking forward to Raoden, but she doesn't seem like she should be a naive character. But some of the times she frustrates me because she knows she's intelligent, but she seems to forget that other people can be intelligent too. And granted, the king that she's dealing with in Erelon, he is a moron, but she doesn't seem to fully think through some of her steps or some of her actions. And I don't want to go into specifics or anything and ruin anything, but it's just like frustrating that, you know, at certain points a character is doing something and they want to let her in on what's going on, and she just refuses to meet them. And then she'll get upset when she figures out what's going on, and it's just like, I tried to meet with you, you wouldn't. And it bugs me when she kind of seems to forget that other people could have things going on, or I don't want to go into, like, another example is because she's a widow in Erelon, there is something to do with a widow's task. And so she has to perform a widow's task, and how she goes about it, something comes up and she tries to kind of prove how clever she is with her task, and it completely hinders another character in this book. And it's frustrating because she, without thinking it through, is hurting people that don't deserve to be hurt. And hopefully it's vague enough where no one could consider that a spoiler. But Serene bothers me for how much experience she has with playing politics and going around to different courts, that she doesn't kind of think all the way ahead. So she can think about complex moves in certain plots, but she doesn't always think about the consequences of her actions, and that's a little frustrating to read. Oh, I also want to mention too, one thing I don't like about this book is the maps. This is the map that you're given at the front, and I find it very unhelpful. A lot of these places aren't necessarily referred to, and Elantris is like a tiny little dot up here. and it's just kind of confusing. And then it did give you a map of Elantris and Kai, the city next to it, but they don't have a key with any landmarks. So, I mean, you have to just kind of go off of what they're describing in the book to hopefully figure out locations. I was just a little upset because I'm so used to fantasy book maps being very helpful and informative, and these ones were not. So while I was initially happy that there were maps in the book, I did not find them very helpful. So just an FYI. So overall, I would give this book 4.25. Not quite a 4.5, but more than a 4, because I did really enjoy a lot of the concepts in this book, and I did really like the conclusion, and it's very fun to see because it is standalone, but I know from seeing announcements that we're apparently getting sequels, and I could see where potential sequels could be, but it's really up in the air what direction Brandon Sanderson is going to go in this world, and I can't wait to see. But 4.25. So that's all I have to say about this book, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!